Hi, and welcome to Selling in a Skirt with Judy Hoberman. I'm Judy. Welcome back if you've been with us before, and if you haven't, welcome, welcome, welcome. Selling in a Skirt is all about connection, community, and relationships. It's about empowering professional women, and it's also about encouraging men to not only be a champion for, but advocate and sponsor for and with women. What I love most about this is that I get to meet the most incredible men and women and work with them, whether it's behind the mic or whether it's out in the field. So let's talk about what we're going to do today. It is my absolute great pleasure to introduce you to Scott Heinila. Now I'm going to read just a little bit of his bio because I want him to tell you all about him. So Scott started his insurance career in 2001, dedicating his time to assisting insurance and financial advisors and their clients within the three facets of protective portfolio planning: annuities, life insurance, and long-term care insurance. He's currently the director of Producers Choice Network, a wholesale insurance distributor and marketing firm, and he's also the president and founder of Prism Wealth Preservation Optimized Wealth Strategies, a professional financial insurance services firm specializing in working with pre-retirees, retirees, and business owners. He's got us all covered. And host of the Optimized Advisor podcast. So I'm going to let him tell you all about him, what I didn't tell you, something that's not on his bio. So, hi, Scott. We're excited to have you. So tell everybody what you do, why you love what you do, and why you're doing this.
I could answer that in many, many different ways. However, I'll use the story of how I got into this business. So you made the note 2001, and if you remember, 2001 was probably not the greatest of markets. I knew at a very early age that I wanted to be what I thought was a stockbroker, not really knowing what all that really meant. But I knew I wanted to be in investments and a financial planner as such. Well, when I graduated college with a degree in finance, I was charged and ready to go and thought I was going to do all those great things in investments and financial planning, and the market didn't really lend itself to that. And I was also happened to be with a company that was, let's just say, toxic.
Ooh.
And so that was a sounding alarm of, wait, am I in the right place? And I was introduced to a good friend of mine in the firm that I ended up working with and becoming the director of sales after about 5 years. And it was all tied towards really insurance and predominantly annuities. So there's where I was introduced to the world of an index and fixed annuities. Never heard of it. Never did they mention the word in college or finance in any capacity, really, the word annuity. And at the time, it was so desirable from a description standpoint. Not to get into all of that at this point, but it was a very refreshing environment and opportunity. And at the time I said, you know what, this sounds like a great fit. I went into the insurance side of things, wholesaling, if you will, and I never really looked back. And so that was how I was born into the insurance side of the financial services world, if you will. And it's been a heck of a ride. It's been a wonderful experience. A lot of people make the mistake, I think, of just casting insurance as a boring place, and it's nothing close to boring. I can promise you that.
Now, and it's so interesting because when I finally got into this world of insurance, which was in 1990, I thought it was fascinating. I was so excited. People would say to me, how do you get excited about insurance? I'm like, it's not really about insurance. It's about what it provides. And once you decide that you can protect people and you can take care of people, it is exciting. So
absolutely.
I'm right there with you. That was when I found that, I was like, okay, I am home now.
Yeah, my innate passion, it took me many, many years to figure out why was I so interested in finance and planning. And my mom, I was adopted at birth. My father passed away when I was very young. And really for a short stint, she married someone, and that didn't work out well. So most of my childhood, I was raised by a single mother. And I had a sister. I have a sister who's 7 years older than I am, who is very, very much like my mother and artistic and very, very, emotional and artistic and all of those things.
All the things that finances aren't.
Bingo, exactly. And so she was a private school teacher. If you know anything about private school teachers, they do not make an incredible living.
No.
So the source of her income was really her private school teacher salary. And she was a master's degree, so very, very educated and very intelligent, and so her Social Security from our, deceased father. And I can remember the mortgage was $865 a month, and there were many months where the power got turned off, and she was working really, really hard to make sure that she could just make ends meet. And there were many tough nights, and she would really lean on me more so than my sister to be that crying shoulder. And so at a very early age, I was exposed to what it felt like to not have resources. And so I think part of just how I was brought up was to be a very hard worker. At a very young age, I figured out how to make my own money and do side jobs, and I was naturally gravitated towards, I need to help people plan so that they are not faced in this environment.
And that's a story that when you tell it, people can relate to it. And that's what this whole business is about. This business is about relationships. And when you tell your story, they're like, well, oh, that's me. You know, so it's interesting. But no matter what we do and what we talk about, it always comes down to a few things. And one of them is being busy or productive. Some of us are very busy. Some of us are very productive. One or the other. But there's also, you know, the conversation about time management. And time management also leads to that elusive work-life balance, which I truly believe there is no such thing. But how do you manage your time effectively? You have a business, you are a husband, you're a dad. How do you make sure that you can actually manage yourself effectively when you have so many competing priorities?
I will say it's not easy, that's for sure. I will say it is. I don't think it's possible to do it alone. Right. I think you need help, you need support, you need a sounding board, whether that's a business coach or a mentor, or preferably both, which I've adopted both in the last number of years as your life, as your kids grow and sports, and you still have your own personal needs and wants. I mean, I need things that I need to do to make sure that I'm optimally, in the right frame of mind, as well as feeling healthy. Being a good husband, being a good shepherd to my wife and to my family and to the business, and to have those aspirations of growing the business. And that becomes, when you're spinning a lot of plates, it becomes a challenge. So with that said, a couple things that I've learned is, number one, get help and use help as a business coach and a mentor, and I have both. Two, if it's not on the calendar, it is not going to happen. Three, my time comes first, meaning I have to squeeze that extra hour out of the day first, otherwise it's not going to happen. And so those are a few things that I have really, really dedicated towards that help manage the time and really optimize productivity.
So like the airlines say, put your own oxygen mask on first before you can help somebody else. Are you very strict with your boundaries?
I would like to say so. However, I'm also the person who I can always do more. A little bit of there's a new shiny object.
Yeah.
And then in time, I've come to try and become more mature and disciplined to the fact that no. At some point, you have your limitations, but that is a personal challenge of mine, without question.
Yeah, I think that's true with most people. You have to be so strict, and sometimes it's not fun to be strict, and you become, that person that's just so, everything is so structured, but you have to. And especially when you own the business and you have people that you're responsible for and your family.
Right.
But I'm going to shift just a little bit, because part of this is about mindset. And my favorite topic is women, because that's what I do. So many times women have to shift their mindsets, about the boundaries or about the work-life balance. And I don't believe, like I said, I don't believe there's balance. I believe there's harmony, and harmony is wherever you are, you're present. So if you can find that harmony, that's going to be your balance. But there's so many times that, women want to move forward in this industry, and maybe it's not available. Or sometimes women want to be able to have flexibility, and sometimes that's not available. So you have to change your mindset a lot. But a lot of times we also feel that men don't have to change their mindset because they got it. It's easy for them. Is that true? Is there some way that you could help or give us some steps that you take to change your mindset so that you're comfortable doing what you're doing and still being productive?
Yes, I can answer that. Let me first ask, though, can you define to me harmony?
Yes. Okay, so, which is a great question. So if I am working and I'm 100% with you, I'm here, I'm 100%. I'm not thinking about what I have to do later on or what I have to pick up this one or drop off this or whatever. I'm 100% here. So right now I am in perfect harmony
Engaged,
with you.
locked in.
100,
Right.
present.
Right.
When I'm home, I'm 100%. Okay? Now there are times that I teeter-totter over that line, but I feel it and I know it's not right. So when I'm with my husband, I want to be with my husband. Okay, when I'm with you, I want to be with you. When I'm with someone else, I want to be there. When I'm, giving a speech, I want to be there. That to me is harmony. There is no work-life balance because if it's 50-50, it doesn't exist. If it's 100 and 100, you're never going to find it. So to me, balance is harmony.
That's balance.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And so that really shapes your mindset
Correct.
in many capacities through and through.
Absolutely.
So I struggle with harmony. I think I would give myself probably a B as it relates
That's
to
not
harmony.
bad, though.
Right. It's passing. It's passing, although it's not 100%. And that's the goal that we all strive to get to. So to answer your question as it relates to mindset, it's a very, very interesting question in mindset. And I think you go back to, okay, so in what capacity, in what role? For me, my mindset varies depending on where I am or what hat or what plate I'm spinning, if you will. So am I in the capacity and the mindset where I'm actually working with one of our advisors right now? And let's face it, in many cases I'm more of a consultant or not necessarily a psychologist, but definitely an emotional sounding board. Let's just put it that way.
Absolutely.
And so there's one level of the mindset that you have to put yourself in first, and then let me use the other end of the spectrum. Let me use my children. And this is the one most fascinating things as a parent. Same parents, same household, same home, same street, same community.
Totally different.
Totally different.
That's what makes it interesting, though, isn't it?
It is one of the most challenging things that I have experienced in my life with two boys, and the way I communicate and the mindset that I can have with one child versus another is drastically different. And so, to me, the mindset is certainly can-do attitude. That's definitely where I live and I sit, and I try to accept and be very, very observant. I'm very individualistic as a person, so I'm very good at recognizing who you are, what skill sets you have, how you're kind of wired and made up, and I try and adapt to who you are and how I can be most effective in that relationship. I don't know if that answers the question.
No, it does. It does. Because I remember, and you brought something up that's very interesting. You make sure that you're relating to that person, and so you talk to that person maybe differently than you talk to me or someone else. But I do remember saying at one point that I take my lead from whoever I'm with. So if I walked into, when I was in the height of my sales in insurance, and I would walk in someplace and I would say, "Hey, how are you?" And they'd go, "Fine." I knew from that fine that this was not a relational person. This was a transactional person. I also knew that it wasn't a chatty time. It wasn't a story time. It was get to the bottom line.
Right.
But if I walked in and said, "How are you?" I'm like, "Oh my goodness, let me tell you what happened this morning." Totally different.
Totally different.
I can tell by the hello how to react to somebody. And it's also a different mindset that you have to be able to play, like move the chess pieces around.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
it's different. But I also know that in this industry, women do really well. And there's a lot of women that come in. What doesn't happen is women don't always get to this next level. They just don't. And it's like the $1 million question, like, why is that? When I first started, I was one of the only or the only woman in any place that I was, in any capacity, whether it was as a producer, as a sales leader, as an agency manager, it was just me or whatever. I wanted to make sure that there were more women coming into the industry because it's based on relationships.
Yeah.
And when you read all the statistics about having women in business, the bottom line is you do a lot better because they have a different perspective. It's different thought process. It's all of that.
Yes.
So I know that you have, an incredible reputation. What are some of the ways to create that reputation to attract more top talent to your organization and perhaps more women?
I would love to comment first and foremost on the points of, a female advisor. And I want to make a few points to that before I answer the question. One is I would say they are significantly better suited and let's maybe constructed, less sensitive way to put the word, but than the male counterparts in many, many capacities. By and large, they're generally significantly better at organization.
Right.
Two, they are they are typically better at relationships and communication and open communication and sharing of insights and emotions. I also think that they, by and large, generally have less of an ego and willing to admit, I need help. B, I'm probably not the best person for this job. So it's baffling to me that we don't see more women operating at and owning this space.
Because a lot of people would rather deal with men for one big reason. They're more decisive. They make the decision. They don't, have to have a whole committee to, and that's what a lot of, as a female myself, I like to make sure that I get the whole story. So I ask a lot of people. With men, you don't do that. You're like this.
I don't ask anybody.
That's right.
Or
you
maybe
just do it.
one person.
But you just do it. That's the point. And so I think that's one of the biggest reasons. They also have been in the industry much longer than women. So people feel that they have the experience and the expertise where women just have a different perspective.
Yeah.
So go ahead, continue.
I would love nothing more than who I feel the rightful ownership, if you will, of women being significantly more profound in the financial planning space. Okay, going back to your question, I digress.
No, but it makes sense. It makes sense. So if you want to, create, more opportunities for women.
Yes.
What is it that you're doing for your brand to attract that?
Okay, so a number of things. One, how are we present in the females and associating to finance space? Well,
right.
Literal definition.
Yes.
We are.
Yes.
I am a male ally for the Females in Finance organization. Cheryl Hickerson doing an incredible job, 4,000 plus members deep, not just women, predominantly women, but also their male ally network. So being very, very dedicated to financial planning and giving women power and the opportunities to excel. One, two, recognizing that the females are probably the best in many capacities. We continue to hire on our team and bring on new team members that are females and giving them real opportunity to really run the organization, if you will, and really lean into them as professionals and not just the position of, because we talked about this at one of our last conferences on a female panel, of not just putting women in that administrative position,
right,
if you will. Giving women authority and runway, respect, and all of the opportunities that exist for anybody else within the organization. And here is a clean slate. What is it that you want? How do you define your vision of success in this company or in any company? And let's go help you make that happen.
Yeah, and I think there's a really strong point there, because you have to be able to answer that also. What is your definition of success? Is it having 5,000 clients? Is it, making X amount of dollars? What's your definition of it? And sometimes we don't have the answer to that. There's another thing we don't always have the answer to, and that's referrals. When I want to give somebody a referral, I'll say to them, tell me who you're looking for. Mm-hmm. There's three options. They'll either say everyone. No.
Right.
They'll say, I'm looking for somebody whose company does $500 billion and they have 54 employees. I'm like, I'm not HR and I'm not the bank. Try it again. And so we don't know how to ask for those referrals, because,
right,
the referrals are the most expensive free lead, because not everybody gets them. And I know, like, you and I were introduced as a referral from Cheryl. when she has females in finance, like what better way to create relationships, right? And so when she referred us, I was excited, and I love the results. I love the things that we get to do together, and I know there's a lot more. So I guess the question is, in the capacity that you're in the level that you're in, are you still looking for referrals? And how does that work for you? Is it you're looking for more talent? You're looking for more, what are you looking for?
Yeah. So in our world, the day that we stop developing new relationships is the day that our business begins to erode and becomes dust in the wind. And for many reasons. One, attrition. Advisors retire. Advisors have the free will to do what they want with their business, and we have to earn their business.
That's right.
We have to earn their business every day, every week, every month, and that keeps us on our toes. Additionally, I think it also helps to keep us driving forward, and there's a very important mindset that is required there to not be complacent, to not rest on our laurels per se, to continue striving to keep ourselves sharp, educated, trained, all of those things, right? And that's a very, very important part. And I think not just us in our space, but also advisors get to that point in their career where it's like, okay, I've been throttled down for however long, and I've rested off the throttle. Now I'm going to put my hands up and just kind of take a nap. And I think that's a very, very delicate balance and dangerous place to be. We don't want to be there.
Right.
Also, from an internal standpoint, it absolutely is pursuing connections, personal introductions, ways that we can be introduced to talent, and talent that we can welcome onto our team. Most importantly, is not just your skill sets and your natural abilities. I think that's an easier thing to find. Per se, the X's and O's on a resume. Right. It's culturally, are you a good fit for our team and our community internally, or are you going to be a cancer? And what is our job with cancer? Or cancer, you got to cut it out. Yeah. And so I'm very, very protective of the environment that we do have. I think that we do have a very, very good and nurturing and cohesive culture. And I don't want to do that's probably my biggest hurdle, is doing anything
to disrupt that. Yeah, absolutely. I remember having to uninvite someone on my team. Because that's a very nice way to put it. We were all 1099, so you can't really fire somebody, but you can uninvite.
Understand.
But I remember, and he was a rock star. Like, he wrote so much business. It was incredible. But he was a cancer. Because at that point, I was traveling back and forth between states. And every time I would leave, he'd undermine me. And I didn't realize, like, why do I have to repeat these things like 5,000 times? And finally, somebody said, every time you leave, he undermines you. So he and I had a conversation. And he said, well, you shouldn't have that position. I should have that position. I'm like, okay. How do you see you doing this? P.S., long story short, he did something that was just inappropriate to a lot of different people, and I asked him to leave. And that's when all the other advisors took notice, like, oh my goodness, if she's getting rid of somebody at that level, she's not getting around. She's very protective. So, so I totally agree with
the superstar. You got rid of the superstar.
That's right. How could you do that? And of course it hurts your bottom line, but honestly, everybody else stepped up to the plate, and they did amazing things.
Absolutely. I say this all the time. I mean, in our business, it doesn't say on our head, on our storefront, not for profit.
Right.
We are running a business. Make no mistake of that. And we do care about hitting goals and revenue and doing all of those natural things. But more important to that has to be the environment and the culture that we work in and day out. And it needs to be a good fit, and we have to eradicate cancers, period.
Right, absolutely. So we both know that there's hundreds and thousands of people that do what we do. They're all over the place. But there's also things that are making people aware of what you're doing. So what makes you and your company so different that people would want to come to you rather than all the other ones that are down the street? What is it, what's unique about you, and what are you doing for not only your advisors, but for the potential clients? What is it that's different?
Yeah, I think two things. One, And I'll be honest with you, I would have thought 10, 15 years ago that this would be less important and a necessity to the environment that we find ourselves in. However, it's not. And I would challenge that this skill set that we provide our advisors and relationships, in turn their clients, has only grown. And it is human connection, not digitizing every part of our business. Obviously, we want to be digital and efficient and all of those things. And yes, technology does help that.
But it's still human to human.
It is human to human. Yeah. And so I guess the word that I would say is service. We probably would have thought 10, 15 years ago that the need for service and support in our space would be less and less and less. And it's not. It's become more and more and more. Because let's face it, I think the reality of what happened with COVID and more technology and more remote working and a lot of these things that have driven into our working environment have really strained the quality of service and the standard of service from our manufacturers, which is the insurance companies, and it's left with the advisors interfacing with their clients. This is the reason why we do it.
Right.
Period. It's to enhance the lives of those that we serve. And who do we serve? Our advisors and indirectly their customer. And so more and more, it's become very apparent to us that, and we excel at this in providing proper service and supports for advisors to be a true extension of their practice. And I think I would challenge advisors to also adopt that more and more with their clients as well. That's one area. The other really is so much of our world now has become human interaction, relationship driven, and so we try to be very, very thoughtful of the relationships that we do have, create unique experiences that are memorable, because let's face it, what's the difference between a stock, a bond, a mutual fund, an annuity? To some level, what I have is not, from a product standpoint, any different than what you have.
Right.
But what I can do is create really memorable relationships and bonds, and that is what's really lasting, I think, in our business, and how we create real personal connections and try to help our advisors also create real personal experiences and relationships with their customers.
Yeah.
Do something different.
Right.
Push the boundaries a little bit, encourage your customers to have emotion, adrenaline, maybe push them outside of their normal comfort zone. Encourage them to do something. Take your guests and do something that they wouldn't ordinarily do.
Right.
Not to where they would be, completely, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But identify who they are and do something that really can make a difference in their life. And we really do try and do that.
Yeah. No, I totally see that, and I hear it, and it makes sense to me. I will tell you that when I left the field and I went into corporate, it was very toxic for me. So I left after a few years. And I remember going back and thinking, like, if I was starting all over, what would I have wanted? And what would it be that would draw me in? And I would have wanted somebody that understood being a single mom, or understood like what the challenges are, and then pushed me when I needed pushing, but loved me when I needed loving. And so I never had that. So that's who I became. Mm-hmm. I became that person. So when I go into companies and I do coaching or training or whatever, I get them because I was that's who I was. Mm-hmm. But I also know how it is to bring them up and to give them the tools that they need. And so, my tagline is, women want to be treated equally, not identically. We don't want to be one of the men, but we certainly want the opportunities. And so it works. Yeah. It just works.
I love that. I mean, I love the element of, I was raised by two women, mm-hmm. And it is okay that we are different.
Right.
You're a woman, I'm a man, a male, and there are strengths that we both have.
Right.
Why don't we figure out a way that we can lean into each other's strengths and respect that?
And make them assets, not liabilities.
100%. Now, the requirement is that I cannot have an ego, and I need to truly believe in your abilities, right? And I think all too often men have this guard or this perception, or their perspective has been shaped in a capacity that maybe disallows them, or it's a real hurdle for them to get beyond that.
Right.
You really, really have to believe in the strength and the power of women without it being a boundary in any capacity.
Right. And that's not always the easiest thing to do. I remember speaking somewhere, and in the middle of my talk, there was a man in the back, and he's raising his hand, and he said, "Can I ask you a personal question?" You have to be really careful with that when there's a room full of people, like hundreds of people, and somebody wants to ask you a personal question. And I said, "Yeah, sure, absolutely." And like I'm holding on.
Right. What is he going to ask?
And he asked me a very interesting question. He said, "You talk about male champions, male allies, whatever." And he said, "I think I might be one, but I know I want to be one. How do I do that?" And I thought that was such a brilliant question. And like everybody, like it was almost like, when Charles Schwab talks, everybody's listening. And so I told him a couple of different things. He said, "Oh, I do that. I knew I was doing that." So it's part of this whole thing with the ego or the lack of ego or the mindset or the confidence or whatever. But we both have it. And I think we just have to learn to, technical term, mush them together.
Yeah, I've always, for many years, it was like, man, just work, harder or work smarter, right? And smart, not hard, or hard, not. What about if I actually work hard and smart?
It doesn't have to be either or.
Yes.
It could be and.
And for male and female, why don't we figure out how to work male and female?
Right.
And the sky is the limit, 100%.
Yeah, I used to buddy men and women up and send them out on the road and just say, you learn from her, you learn from him.
I hate the either or.
I know.
I'm just so done with it. I'd much rather and.
Yeah.
A big difference.
Yeah, totally. Totally. I love that. So where can our listeners find out more about you, what you do, what you're looking for, and what you're excited about for 2023?
Well, our little podcast is the Optimized Advisor Podcast. By the name, we seek to engage with other advisors in the community, and it's a passion project. It's also indirectly a way that we can hopefully communicate to the relationships that we do have, because let's face it, as any organization grows, I would say the leader of that organization is less directly connected to those that help build the know, and so in some distorted way, I guess I started doing the podcast as a way to create communication, if you will, and to still have communication to the advisors that we do work with. And so we try to fit three main categories: helping advisors optimize their life. That's the funnest topic. Optimize their practice. That's the more really, shop talk, if you will, and then learn from other optimized advisors, where I push the envelope a little bit there and bring in other entrepreneurs. Because I think, an entrepreneur, whether I sell investments or insurance or hotel chains, they're very much similar.
Yeah.
So anyways, OptimizeAdvisorPodcast.com. Producers Choice Network is our company. That is how we generate a living, and that's ProducersChoiceNetwork.com. You could find us on LinkedIn and all the social media platforms as well.
Awesome. Last question. What are you excited about for 2023?
So very short term, we've been building a home for the last year and a half. We're finally going to be moving in. That's a personal distraction. So I say that because for anybody who's built a home, they know that that's quite demanding. I am very, very much excited. We have not had rates like this in our business in 12 to 14 years. I kid you not.
Wow.
And so with that is bringing incredible amount of opportunity and revenue. I do not foresee that to change. It's an interesting environment that we find ourselves in, both domestically and globally, for sure. What's going to happen of the economy in the next 6 to 12 months. Definitely we see that the saving side, the safety side of things are going to be the place to be. So I'm excited to see how that unravels and unfolds and develops. I think that's just an incredible business and an opportunity that we find ourselves in the next year to 3 years, and enjoy the ride.
Well, I think that it's a good way to end the show. So thank you so much for being with me. This has been awesome. I can't wait to return the favor for you. And I just appreciate you.
Thank you very, very much for having me.
Absolutely.
Until next time.
Until next time. So thank you all for being with us on Selling in a Skirt with Judy Hoberman, where I get to bring the most amazing men, champions, and women. And it's always fun. So until next time, we'll see you soon.